Hey folks, welcome to the recap sequence. We got a special guest today. We have an author on. We don't talk to a lot of authors. You did in
I
HalCon.
did, yes.
This is what Ryan does when I'm not around. He cultures and he brings in other elements
I
that
branch
I
out.
do not. You branch out, and actually, this is a local author. Goes by the name of Bea Waters, and we're discussing her book, A Project Human. And it is, well, we're going to find out what the availability is and how we get our hands on it and what it's all about. But let me first welcome to the show, Bea Waters.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Glad to have you.
This is awesome, and I'm just saying, for those who watch the YouTube video of this, I love the two background paintings
Hmm.
behind you of Stonehenge and the cover of your book again, which is right here. That's awesome.
Thank you. Well, the cover of my book was actually painted by a local author as well, or sorry, local artist named Jim Middleton, and he's so talented. And I knew exactly what I wanted, so I kind of designed the concept, but I knew I wasn't talented enough to paint it. But for anyone on YouTube that can see, the Stonehenge painting behind me is actually one of my own originals. I,
Oh
in a
wow,
former
Looks
iteration of
great.
myself, used to paint for about 4 years. So
that's
I
r
have lots of
really
art
cool.
hanging on my walls
Yeah,
and I like
yeah.
to design things, but Jim is way better at the painting than I ever could be. So
Well,
that's definitely Jim's work there.
you're selling yourself short. That's an awesome painting of Stonehenge back there. I can't paint anything. I can't even paint a
This
room.
is why we do this.
Yeah, this is exactly. This is what I do. I can talk a lot, and that's my thing.
I'm just curious, MB. Did you get the cover for the book from Jim before you started writing, as you were writing, or did was this done after the you had written the book?
The book was fully finished.
Okay.
And I actually just one of my Facebook memories came up a couple of days ago. It was 1 year ago. I had posted this sketch that I had done of what I wanted on the cover because it's actually a scene from the book. So I knew that that's what I wanted to use to kind of display to people that this is science fiction. Like there's a big spaceship on the cover of the book.
Yeah.
People don't like aliens. I don't want them to pick up my book by mistake and read it and hate it. Like there's enough room for everyone in the world to like a different book. So I really wanted to kind of get at the nugget of what this is about, but also Olivia is dancing in a cornfield and she's raising energy out of the ground. And that's actually something that she does in this book that attracts the aliens. And I very specifically wanted that energy to look like a DNA double helix because her DNA is very important in the story. You guys know, you've read it, and her DNA is very important. So I kind of wanted all of those elements. And then the Pleiades are in the background, and on the book itself, there it's on the back cover. That kind of leaves room for me to write the little blurb that tells you what the book's about. But yeah, there was very, very specific elements that needed to be on the cover, and I'm just so blown away with how Jim took my vision and made it look so amazing. Because to me, this thing looks awesome on the shelf. So I'm like, they say don't judge a book by its cover, but everybody does. If
Of
you
course.
pick up a book that has like a boring cover, it doesn't drag you in. And I wanted something that would drag you in. And I just think Jim has really created that here.
You're absolutely right there because I'm a massive reader, and I when I go looking for something, and I'm not sure what I'm looking for, the cover has to be one of those things that catches my eye, catches my attention, and that's been like that for as long as I've been reading. And you can ask my wife. I commandeer all the bookshelves at home with what I have,
He
and
does. I'm not his wife, by the way.
this was such a unique read. I'm not a big science fiction reader myself, and I will say this right now that comparatively, this right here, I compare it to the Terry Brooks's most recent series that he's written. Now that he has moved on from his Shannara series, and it's based on a character who believes she's human and then discovers she's got these other traits, and they come out when she gets introduced into this new world where she feels more at home. And this was such the case with Olivia. I mean, what a character you created with Olivia.
Well, thank you.
So give us a synopsis then, if for those who are listening to this and wondering why should I pick up Project Human.
Okay, well, the pitch that I like to give people, first of all, this is the first book in a series, and the series is kind of based on the concept that 13 alien races came to planet Earth in the distant past and tinkered with our DNA to create human beings. And they created this thing called Project Human, which is what the book's about. And our ascension into this galactic community rests on the shoulders of 14-year-old Olivia Carpenter, this girl who's just trying to find her place in the world. And she goes out and she's not finding her place in the world. And what she finds is that she's got a place in the galaxy. And I just kind of wanted to bring home that there's room for everybody. There's place for everybody. We just have to find our specific little niche. It turns out Olivia's niche isn't little, it's absolutely galactic. But that's like kind of the concept. And so book one is her book one, the subtitle didn't fit on the cover to make it look nice, but the subtitle is First Contact. So it's the first contact that humans are making with all of these aliens who, actually in the distant past we saw as gods. And when I was doing the research and putting together all the world building, I tried to research as many different cultures around the world as I possibly could and infuse all of the alien species with elements from those cultures to try and explain in my own head why it is that we have such like an amazing diversity but in those past stories they all talk about common elements. So all of these stories have to be real and they have to be coming from somewhere. And this book is just my brain trying to make sense of things that don't make sense to me.
You do a wonderful job of describing everything that is surrounding Olivia, and not just when she's on Earth, but the way she's dancing and then being, basically teleported up to the ship, her experiences on the ship, her experiences when she's meeting these new characters, some who become her friends. It's blown away, and it's such an easy read to get through, I find.
Oh, well, thank you. I in terms of the description, like I said, it was back when I was in my 20s, I was painting. And then I moved into an era where I was writing songs and being a musician, put out a CD. And then I moved into filmmaking. So I think like the painting and the filmmaking, the visual stuff very much informs now how I write and how I describe. There is another person who's read the book who is a film editor. And he said, when I'm reading this book, I'm seeing what the cinematographer sees through the lens. Like you're describing what the movie of this book is going to look like. And I thought that was kind of cool, seeing as like I have that filmmaking backdrop to look at. So I have to say that I was trying not to overload the description, because there are fantasy books that are just so description heavy that it takes like the girl with the dragon tattoo, I couldn't get through it because it wasn't going somewhere for me. I need there to be action. So I think when I was doing like multiple edits of this book, anytime I got bored, I was like, okay, gotta have something's gotta go on. I gotta add something in. I gotta make it high octane. And I've been told that maybe there's a little bit too much going on and it could have been like 2 books, but that's just me. That's my temperature. That's, the way I go. So it's what comes out on the page.
That's great. It's great that your personality makes it out there, and I agree. I tried to read Game of Thrones, and I made it about 40 pages in. Talk about a lot of descriptive writing, and it's for some, but I definitely appreciate your style and it's very straightforward, and I like Ryan said, it's a very easy read. I love that you mentioned that you're a filmmaker, and that informed sort of how you sort of map out the way that you move from piece to piece in the book. I'm curious if I had known that before going through, if I would have thought of that, considered that while reading it. But that's a great way to sort of conceptualize. It's very interesting. You've got the multidisciplinary talents in there. You're able to paint a picture. You're able to tell a story. You're able to visualize a story, and those are all fantastic elements that will lead to something like this. Now you say this is book one. How many books do you have planned?
I have 12 books planned.
Oh, wow.
So that sounds really big, but the plan is for Olivia to have all these independent adventures as she's coming into the adult that she's going to be. And I'm going to get into some really heavy topics. Like, these are aliens that have created humans to be what we want them to be. So, I mean, down the road, I don't know if it's going to be book 3 or book 4, book 5, but we're going to get into the topic of, like, they want her to start breeding to make more fully evolved humans like her. And is that their decision to do? Because it isn't. She's a fully sentient being, but yet they created us and they have this plan. Are we willing to go along with the plan? You know, all those kind of things that I think we as humans put on to, like, I mean, we breed pigs and we breed dogs. And what if it was being done to us? So I like to take those thoughts and kind of look at it from, put yourself in the other person's shoes. And so if we were the ones that were expected to breed, how would we feel about that? So, but anyway, with the 12 different books, each one's going to be an adventure, something that Olivia has to figure out, and, you know, the big insurmountable odds that she's up against. But also each book is going to be a deep dive into one of the different alien cultures. So in book 1, it's a deep dive into the Jinn, who are, you know, 4 feet tall, little golden skinned beings, and they're hive mind. They're very much like bees. So they have their unique purpose within the hive, but they don't stray from the group needs, the hive needs. And so book 2, I'm 62,000 words into the first draft. Book 2 is into the Society of the Atlanteans. Olivia has to come to Earth and rescue the lost city of Atlantis. Spoiler alert, don't mind saying this. The lost city of Atlantis is not an island. It's not a continent. It's a spaceship. It's a generation ship that was sent here so that the Atlanteans could spread their culture. But not everybody was in agreement with that kind of plan that they had. And so things went bad, and Olivia has to come and rescue the city of Atlantis. So book 2 is called Atlantis Rising.
Sorry, I love how you created in this first book basically a United Nations court. That was such a neat way of approaching it, and listening to you describe all this, I'm like, oh my, it's I see it all now, and how you know what happens and how you created all of this. It's a fascinating journey you take the reader on.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've read a lot of YA, and YA is kind of where I like to read. So I decided this is where I wanted to write books. And but this story, actually, it's interesting because I was saying that I had a film background, and I went to the Banff Media Festival a decade ago, and I pitched this as a television series.
Oh,
but
wow.
the pitch was for an adult series, so it wasn't YA. That's where I like to read, and that's where I've decided to write. But when I was pitching it for a TV series, it would have been like 9-10 p.m. I was kind of thinking networks like HBO, where you can do what you want to do. And it was very adult oriented. You know, all of these aliens show up in our sky to claim us. And what the heck do we as humans, not expecting this, do about it? So also with like the longevity of this series, I very much plan for that to be going on in the background once the rest of the planet knows that these aliens are, because, you know, Olivia's not going to be able to hide them forever. Now that they found that there's one, you know, I call her fully cooked of the science project. Now that she's fully cooked and ready to go, they're going to think, okay, there's others on the planet. There's 8 billion of you. There's got to be a few others that have all the DNA from the 12 aliens and that are, you know, ready to come join us. And so Olivia's not going to be able to keep the aliens away for long. And then when that happens, the backdrop of the story can very much be where the television series was planned to go.
Right.
But also, like, I really do like high adventure, high octane adventure. And I don't see a ton of that in young adult without the B plot romance. There's always a romance B plot. I think that a lot of young adult, like, kind of caters to a certain mindset where teens are kind of finding their, you know, romance vibes and all that, but it's just everywhere these days. And I wanted to write a book, to be honest, where Olivia's life is in danger so often that she doesn't have time for romance.
Right.
Yes.
just trying to survive and figure it all out, right? So that's it's kind of my counterculture against YA full of
Sure.
romance,
But
tired romance.
I also like though how you incorporate like ordinary life for her in high school. She's getting bullied and the results of what happened when she stands up to that bully. So I mean, you're taking real life experience, you know, for someone in or on Earth, and then going up into space to deal with real life experience.
Well, and I mean those real life experiences, like they say write what you know, and I actually was bullied a lot as a kid. And in grade 6, the head mean girl came up behind me and told me that I had a bunch of split ends and that she was gonna like trim them up. And she grabbed my hair and cut my hair off. So
Jeez.
that scene in the book where Olivia
Right.
has her hair cut off, that kind of thing I didn't have a big crazy bush of curls, but like I had long, long, long hair like I do now. And I guess this girl was upset because my hair was longer and prettier than hers, and I wasn't allowed to have that. That was hers to take. So she took that from me, and nothing happened to her. And so I think very much that Olivia's reaction in the book is kind of like my catharsis of that moment, like I'm writing it and I'm exercising that demon. So maybe I can let it go and move on, because goodness, this was like when I was 12. So it's time to get over it. But there are a lot of kids out there that are bullied, and it's very isolating and very alienating, to coin a great phrase, alienating. And I just wanted people to know how that feels, to be the target of that. And so I really needed to put the reader inside Olivia to feel that. And, maybe it'll have an effect. Maybe people will realize that what they're doing is really not nice, because I don't think half the bullies actually understand
Yeah.
the
No.
effect that they're having,
No,
especially
you're
when they're
right.
doing it really young. Maybe this will have an effect. No, maybe not. Like, who knows? But anyway, it was cathartic for me.
Sure.
So, you're writing book 2 right now. Have you found it easier to write book 2 now that Project Human is done? It's out there.
It's way easier in that the characters speak for themselves. At the beginning of writing, I can outline everything until the cows come home, but until I'm actually writing the book and doing the dialogue and then doing the edits where I carve out the individual voice of each character, like Tuatha has a very unique voice compared to everyone else, and Keelty is very much about the rules. But I don't know if you guys noticed it all, but Keelty never uses contractions in when he speaks. There's no isn't, it's always is not. And so these were kind of things, because he's very precise. So their culture is precise, so they don't use contractions. So I had to like really think about what is the culture, how does that influence this character, but then what are all the unique characteristics that go into each individual, because you don't want flat characters who just like, you don't want a stereotype of each alien. I wanted like real whole beings. So now that the core group of Olivia's friends are established and their voices are established and they speak the way they do and they think the way they do and they're motivated the way they do, it's way easier to get into book 2, because it's like coming back to friends that I haven't like visited in a while. You know what I mean? Like when you're first trying to carve that out, it can be very difficult to have each character speak in a unique kind of way. I know that's a challenge that a lot of writers have. And yeah, so in terms of book 2, but I outlined the whole thing, and then I did a whole bunch of words during NaNoWriMo, and I got to chapter 24 and I stalled and Christmas hit and there were things going on, and I got back in and I couldn't push forward. And so I went back and I looked at the outline and I found a massive problem with the outline, and I rewrote the second half of the outline of the book, and now it's like kind of full steam ahead. So, I mean, you have to know
It's
your process, and you
those
have to
things
know,
happen, right? I mean,
yeah, if there's resistance, there's a reason for it. And I
yeah.
know that now. It's not like writer's block. There's a problem with my plot. Go back, look at the outline. And it was really the character motivations in chapter 15 were supposed to happen in chapter 26. Like I can say with certainty that that was my problem, and I'm fixing it all now and I know where I'm going.
Do you, when you're developing the characters and their voices, does the filmmaker in you do you do any kind of casting in your mind? And I mean, is it hard not to, especially seeing as you approach this as a potential, the television vehicle from the get-go? Do you have, kind of, I don't characters in mind that emulate other actors, actresses, recognizable folks? Like would could if somebody were to come to you and say, "Look, we're going to do a show," would you have people in mind that you would want to cast in it? Is that an awful question?
It's no, no,
No.
no, no. It's not awful at all. First of all, I do have in mind of doing this as a television series. I've been thinking a lot about this, and I think short stories make excellent movies. Books need to be TV
Hmm.
series.
Yes.
A book that has all of this stuff going on, you try to distill it down into an hour and a half, 2 hour script, and you're either losing really important action
Yeah.
or really important character development. Short stories make great films. Philip K. Dick is an excellent example of that. The Minority Report,
Hmm.
Total Recall, like Blade Runner, these are all like short stories that made excellent. I'm quite sure they're all short stories. I might
Yeah.
be missing there a little bit. So in terms of my series, because the aliens are so different looking than humans, I don't want it to be like people in suits.
Yeah.
I see this as an animated series down the road, and therefore it's very much the voice that comes out. Like, Tuatha has wings. I don't want to have and floats over the ground. I don't want to have to strap wings onto
Hmm.
someone and like be rocking them around with a pulley every time we
Right.
have to move.
Right.
It's so much easier to do it animated style. In terms of the voice acting, I really, really have not cast it. I can tell you that a small bit character at the very beginning, there's a character named Zach who is called to the principal's office at the same time as Olivia because they're both like really smart and being looked at for this academy. And Zach was like Sheldon Cooper. He was my inspiration. So, I mean, if I was going to cast someone, I guess I would cast, I don't know the actor's name. I'm really bad
Jim
with names, but I
Parsons.
guess, yes, Jim Parsons. I would probably want to cast him as Zach, which is a really small role and so beneath Jim Parsons. So, even saying that is a bit of an insult. It's like, here, take these 5 lines when I've got these amazing characters that you could pick from, right? So, I haven't thought of that. And it's interesting that you asked that because I've been a filmmaker, but I've also been an actor. I appeared in American Sunset, which is now called The Hostage Game, which was Corey Haim's last film
Oh,
that
wow.
No
he fully
way.
completed before he passed away. It was filmed here in Fredericton. And
Wow.
I'm the bar manager in that. So that's under like my actual name. Bea Waters is my pen name, but my real name is Bronwyn, and I'm in that film. So I do look at things from like an acting perspective as well, and I think that's why it's really important for me that the characters always have the right motivation for what they're doing. I, as the writer, can be like, I need you to do this to get the plot from A to B, and it can feel incredibly disingenuous. So I just rely on my characters and their motivations and what they want to make sure that we're moving kind of in the right direction. So, but yeah, no, I haven't actually done any of the casting at all. I figure by the time I'm done 12 books, there's going to be a whole new crop of amazing
Right.
actors
Yeah.
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
like, casting it ahead of time would just, you know.
So I got a couple other things I just want to bring up here because I thought this was very unique and you don't see this in a lot of books here. First of all, I love the fact that you open up your first chapter, The Family Secret. She's in New Brunswick. She's with her grandmother, and Jamie and I had just recently finished a recording on the Marvel series Echo, and we talk all about the indigenous connections that Maya has with her grandmother, and this resonates right off. Meet Gichu is telling her to take off her sandals and walk barefoot and experience the earth, and I loved how your descriptions of that is fantastic. But I love how you integrate this into making Olivia that much more of a rounded character.
Oh, well, thank you. The other thing that I try to do in this book is that there are certain practices that I use that I think are like anybody can use and are beneficial, and it's about connecting with the energies of the planet. So that when Migitu tells Olivia take your shoes off and like walk barefoot, that's a basic concept if you're trying to ground. So if you have
Mhm.
like all this extra energy that you've been accumulating because you've been in a fight with someone, or because we had a solar flare and the sun is just beaming extra energy down, like we are electrical beings. Our hearts are electrical, our brains are electrical. So it makes sense if there's extra electricity in the air that we're going to absorb some of that. So I'm constantly grounding, and you have to go barefoot on the ground. They say hug a tree. You can hug a tree and then your hands are bare on the tree. But like just standing barefoot on the ground and doing some deep breathing for 20 minutes can really, really help reset your body. So I wanted to put those practices into the book in case people are interested. Here's how to do it. If you're not interested, it's just part of a fun story. But if you are interested, here's my practice. Here's how I do it. And as Migitu is teaching Olivia, here's kind of some of the wisdom behind it and the reason for it. And that allows, and I mean, like that kind of connection to the earth is also something that is very important to the Indigenous people. So, like, you know, if you're going to write an Indigenous character, you really need to be careful of being authentic to the customs, but not to be once again like stereotypical, because
Yeah.
nobody needs the stereotypes. So that was, you know, a good balancing act. And I had an Indigenous beta reader who, you know, read through everything and made sure that I was on path. And he said like he was really into it. He actually wanted me to move Olivia's grandmother's community to his home community
Oh.
so that it could be like,
Right
yeah.
on.
So when
Oh.
somebody asks me, hey, can you move the Indigenous community of Olivia's grandmother
Yeah.
to where I grew up, like that's like one of the craziest, coolest compliments
Yeah.
I've ever.
That's pretty great. I will say, as a dad of two teenage girls and one teenage girl, I think that's essential stuff to know. Grounding yourself as a young adult audience and readers. So I think that's something that my kids are very avid readers. My 10-year-old is into the Percy Jackson stuff now already, and just the idea that they're picking up these traits from these books because these characters really do speak to them. So having somebody that's real and having a described process on just how to just relax, and act your age, like that's I think that's a really important element to a book like this. So I'm really glad to have seen that in there, and really glad to hear your explanation of it too.
Well, thanks. And someone actually recently told me that she thought that Olivia kind of, when she meets these aliens, she accepts it just a little bit too readily. There's no like, oh, what's going on here? And I thought about that and I realized that's because that's part of her culture. Like the Mi'kmaq people believe that they came from the Star People. The Star People brought them here from the Pleiades and will come back and get them. So to Olivia, when she meets all of these aliens, it's not that weird. It's a confirmation of what her grandmother has told her. And so I don't go really deeply into that because in her mind, she wouldn't
Hmm.
go really deeply into that. And then the reader doesn't necessarily know that that's the culture. So I'm kind of thinking maybe in book 2, I'm going to have that little dialogue where it's like, you know, you found all this out and you didn't freak out. Well, no, this is what my grandmother believes. It was just, you know, a confirmation of what our culture is. But yeah, I didn't explain that very well. So I got caught up a little bit.
I wanted something you said, you know, how you hadn't read Game of Thrones or whatever. And
I tried.
I had picked up
But
the
yeah.
first book and I had never encountered an author whose each chapter was a character. So I put it down. But after I watched the first season, I picked it back up because all of a sudden I had a visual in my head of who I'm reading about there. What I also like, you don't find this in a lot of books, and I really like that you did this one, B, is the glossary of characters and how to pronounce their names. I thought that was that helped immensely. Well, because I mean, you've got all these aliens out here, so unless I'm watching it on television, in my mind, I can pronounce it certain ways.
When I was in grade 4, we had a substitute teacher that read a story with a character named Penelope in it. And I knew it was Penelope, but the entire book, she just called her Penelope. And so,
Okay,
yeah,
so
sometimes you need that.
So thank you
when
for
I
doing
started
this.
when I started reading Harry Potter for like 4 or 5 books, I thought her name was Hermione. And when I found out it was Hermione,
Yeah.
I felt wrong. I felt not betrayed, but I was
Yeah.
like, how could I have gotten? And it felt like there
Yep.
was something wrong with the character after that. So I was like, if anybody else like me just wants to know how to say this
Yes.
stuff, these are alien species, they're alien names. Nobody's going to know how to say it. But I
Yeah.
also tried to make the names simple enough that it's not like a big long string of gobbledygook that you can't say, even if you're like kind of, because you got to have a balance between the name being potentially authentic to that alien species and being something that's way too difficult to pronounce. So I thought that actually the one that people were going to have the most problem with was Keelty, because
I
the
no,
I
that was
before
that
E
normal
or the
came
E or
that
I or
came
whatever.
normal to me for that one. Like I'm just it was so easy because then I'm looking at this and going, okay, that's how you pronounce it. And then it was just from then on out, I was like, all right, I'm enjoying the rest of the book now because I know exactly how everybody's supposed to have their names or culture pronounced at this point. So, and it started right off the get go with Mikitsu. So I was like, okay, all right, I'm all right now. But
Yeah.
and I think that's a nice touch to that book.
Yeah, that's the name for Grammy. Like if you were naming your Grammy, not my grandmother, but like you're talking to her and you say, "Hey, Grammy," that would be the Mi'kmaq word for. And Gitju is grandmother, but in their language, they claim something with the personal pronoun if it's theirs. So Migitju is my Grammy, and it's what you would call your own grandmother. So we only ever see it when it's like Olivia's thinking about her in that way or talking about her. And then there's other places where it's said that she's Olivia's grandmother, so that we hopefully make the connection and know what the word means. And then everybody that reads the book can learn that one word. That's the
Uh,
start.
so I do want to ask, every book, every story I've ever read, you've got your main characters, you've got their friends and whatnot, and then you've got the villain.
Yes.
You created quite the villain in this book here that I will not go, I'll leave it at that. I don't want to spoil, but
Oh, we can
does this
spoil.
creature, I guess creature, will this creature reappear, or will each book going forward have a new antagonist?
No, so this creature is a massive antagonist on planet Earth, and we don't see a ton of him in this book. We see him at the beginning, and then Olivia goes off world, and then she's having some problems with the people that she meets off world, and then she has to come back, and he's still here, and he's still a problem. But he's not solo. He's one of many, and we really kind of only meet him in this book. But I don't mind spoiling it at all, because I actually want to tell you guys how I came up with this.
Okay.
So Dr. Retchin is a conglomeration of all the best conspiracy theories out there. So he's a reptilian, he's a shapeshifter who can walk among humans. His people are responsible for controlling the media and brainwashing us with their broadcasts. They call it programming because they're programming us. And they eat children. Well, they eat humans. They're like farming humans for food. So they see us as below them on the food chain, much like we see chickens and pork and cattle. And so, like I was saying before, I really kind of wanted to flip the script on us feeling like we're absolutely dominant. So there's all these conspiracy theories out there, and I could try and create something. And I was like, why don't I just take all of this crazy, mash it into one giant race of supervillains and see what happens? Because it's going to feel very familiar. You read it and you're like, I've heard something about that somewhere before. Even if you're not into conspiracy theories, you've heard this nonsense running around. So it makes it a little bit more palpable and maybe a little bit scarier. Ooh. And they're also the reason that we have the lore of vampires. So when I talk about looking at ancient cultures and trying to pull all these ancient cultures into the different alien species, the bad guys were no different. They are aliens, and they're on planet Earth because they're using this planet as a farm colony to make their food. But they are the reason that we have the lore of vampires popping up in the middle of the night and, snatching babies and draining them, because that's what their MO is. So they're pretty darn evil, and they're coming for Olivia.
So I'm reading all about Dr. Wretchen, and the I'm sorry, I'll just say it came to mind was X-Files. Everything about him screamed X-Files, and I'm
I was a
reliving.
big fan.
So, all right, see, there you go. So I'm picking some of this, going, oh my gosh, this is completely all about it. So, so if people are, sorry, let me rephrase this. If you're looking, what's your plan now for book 2? Because I will say this, thoroughly enjoyed Project Human. I have an issue where I want more, and I understand you are a writer and you have to write more. What's your plan now for in terms of getting these the books out? I mean, first of all, where can people who are listening to this or watching this on YouTube, where can they find Project Human? First of all,
If you want to get Project Human, and I'd absolutely love if you'd buy it, it's on Amazon. So
awesome.
that's available like pretty much everywhere. If you live in the Fredericton area, it's available at the Fredericton Direct Charge Co-op. I don't have it on any other shelves yet, but I'm working on a bunch of stuff. I don't want to say where, possibly if it falls through. So it's kind of a shame that I can't give a shout out to anyone else yet, but working on that. But yeah, so Fredericton Direct Charge Co-op in Fredericton area, and then it's also available on Amazon globally. So
Okay.
So
in
just
terms of
Amazon.ca, search the title,
yeah,
and it'll come
or
up.
if you're an American listener, Amazon.com. If you're
Perfect.
I've sold books in the UK already.
Oh
So
wow.
Amazon,
Right on.
yeah,
Right on.
well, I'm doing my stuff on social media, and so that has kind of a global reach where you're finding people, like I find people who are into the same kinds of things as me, and geography is no thing but a chicken wing, right? So
Right.
I've actually sold a couple of books in the UK. My book is in a library in Indiana.
Wow.
Yeah, like I'm finding support in all the crazy places. So
There it
yeah.
is. Amazon right there.
There you go.
Amazon.ca.
And if technology serves us, the link is somewhere in this zone right about now. So be sure to if you can't click on it, it'll be in the notes below the show.
So yeah, so
And
book
in
2.
book 2, so right now I'm at 62,000 words. That's in the first draft. I would never, ever publish a first draft. This book actually went through about 35 drafts. I now
Wow.
have more of a process because, like, the thing is, again, with book 1, like, I'm doing a complete pass for each character to try and carve out that unique voice and that unique way of acting and that unique way of influencing things. Now that I know my characters really well, I don't have to do a pass for each character. I can, do a couple at a time. But I'm estimating that it's going to take me a year and a half per book. I'm going to push for a year, but I'm estimating that, like, I'm going to write, what I do is I write the draft, and then when I'm letting that kind of marinate for a little bit, I'm writing the outline of book 3. And then I go
Okay.
back and I edit
Okay.
and I edit. And then when the book is off for being proofread, and then I'm working on the cover art. So there's always like kind of something going on. And if I'm at a pause where I can't work on the book, like say the cover art is done and that's underway and it's being proofread and that takes about a month, I'm going to be starting to write book 3. Like,
Right.
and I'm also writing short stories in between. I just kind of finished up one called Pray to the Sun that is about the end of days when AI is about to kill the last humans on Earth, and they
Wow.
pray to the sun to help them, and the sun comes in the most unexpected of ways.
Okay.
Well, if you end up working out arrangements with other places here in Fredericton, please let us know, because
Yeah.
we'll share the word out there as well for you. Because
Cool.
I tell you right now, Project Human, it was a fun read. It's a fantastic book. I mean, you should really be proud of the work you did to put this together.
Thanks. And if anybody wants to like kind of join my community, I don't bombard anyone with newsletters. Like I'm busy working on writing the books. Like so I'm not going to take time out to do like side stories or this, that, but I do have like a MailChimp that I can send out newsletters. And before this book, I was sending out 2 free chapters that people could kind of read a little bit before they purchased it to see if they like it. Now you can read the entire first chapter on Amazon anyway, so you don't really need to do that. But if people want to be part of the community and follow me and like hear all the other interviews and know when the book 2 is coming out, get the scoop, www.projecthumanbooks.com. That's my website. I update it myself. I run it myself. So I can keep it all like totally up to date there. So if people are interested, you can.
That's awesome.
Awesome. So projecthumanbooksplural.com.
Yes.
Awesome.
.com. Yes.
All right. So
That'll be on the ticker there at the bottom as well.
you bet. Again, technology, don't fail me. The book is Project Human. The author Bea Waters. Thank you so much for talking to us. You want to get the book? It's on Amazon. You can get it now. If you live in Fredericton, go to the Fredericton Direct Charge Co-op,
You will not be disappointed.
or visit www.projecthumanbooks.com, and you can see everything else that Bea's up to. Thank you again. It was great finally getting to chat with you.
Yeah.
I'm glad that the work has begun. Well, 62,000 words is hardly a beginning. So congratulations on getting this one out, and all the work that you've got towards the next dozen. I wish you the best.
Thank you so much, and thank you guys for having me on. We love your show. Like my
That's
husband
awesome.
and I, we listened to your show, so that's how I knew to contact you in the first
Amazing.
place. So keep doing the awesome stuff that you guys do because it's very
We will.
entertaining.
Well,
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
your listening too. That's great. I'm so glad that you reached out to us.
Yay, thank you.
All right, take care.
Thanks, B.